Welcome back to DUBBZI Bricks for another episode of building the Tantive IV in Lego. And this is an update which is going to upset a few people and it's going to frustrate quite a few as well. And trust me, I feel the same way. And it's all to do with the cockpit section of the build. Now, in the last update, I was working on the front bit at the bottom. I was also working on the panel on the side. And as whilst working on that panel, I was looking at something, I thought something's not quite right here. And it was a concern to me last update. And I went away and I thought, right, let's just check everything out. And the cockpit is too big. I've made it too big. And I would say I can't believe it, but to be honest, I can believe it. The amount of mistakes I have made whilst building this humongous build is, yeah, it's no surprise at all. I mean, we had to rebuild this section because it was too, mainly because of the display stand, but also when I went to change the style of it, I realised I've made that too long as well. And I think what's happened is when I first started building it, I built the corridor section just here, and this part here dictated the size of the entire build. So when it comes to doing the cockpit section, I had the measurement for this circle on the end here. I built that, and then that's how I went forward with building the rest of the cockpit. However, the one thing that I didn't take into account, and this is really stupid, schoolboy error again, is that this bit here is the size of where the red part here should come to. So all of this red bit here is too big. It shouldn't be there. It should be back here. And that means that the rest of it going back is out of proportion. It's the wrong size. So, yeah, that's where I've gone wrong. And it was only when I was doing the panel on the side and coming up here, I thought, the way I'm going at the moment is coming up to sort of like about this part here of the build, whereas it should be coming up closer to here. And it just didn't look right. And when I looked at the image at the in Star Wars A New Hope, and I'll put that image on screen now, you'll see what I mean. And I thought, this is just, I've messed up somewhere. And I remeasured everything again, and I realised where I had gone wrong. So yeah, I've got to either leave this as it is, which I could easily do. I mean, when I stand back and look at it, it's looking like the Tantive IV, and yeah, I could just leave it as it is. But you know, it's not accurate, and I don't like the fact that after all the hours and the effort and whatever else I put into this, I want this to be the best it possibly can. I've always stated that, and if I have to rebuild something a dozen times, then I will do it to make sure that this is the best it can possibly be. Now, what sort of impact is this going to have? Well, I'm still confident I can get this ready for September for BrickCon in Dublin, and I think I can get this stripped down, dismantled, and rebuilt within, say, 2 weeks. I think it should be relatively straightforward. I think this section here is okay. I'm just going to double check the size of this slope here. To be honest, there's not a great deal I can do about that slope anyway. And the reason being is this is the correct angle on here. The only thing that might be out is if this corridor section's too long, but I don't think it is. I think it's just purely the size of that. So I'm going to dismantle just the front section of here. Because I'm dismantling it, I'll be keeping all these parts to one side. So I'm not going to have to be sorting through my collection to find the piece I need to rebuild it, because they should all be there. So that's going to speed things up. I think I may need to tweak this bit here as well, because I feel like that, again, this where this white left arm is, I think that may possibly be a little bit too low. I mean, we had problems with this part anyway. But again, it's one of those things that without the bulk of this weight on the front of the build, it should be quite easy for me to modify any part of that whilst I'm at this. The other good thing with me destroying this and starting again at the front is I can improve on certain parts of it, certain techniques, especially down the bottom here. I'm relatively happy with how that looks. However, I do feel like it could look a lot better, and that's one thing. These parts here are very fragile inside. I did strengthen it up the other day whilst doing the bottom section. There was a couple of extra connections I was able to make to it, but again, I feel like I could get a lot more connection points on there. And yeah, we'll just hopefully we've learned a lot from building this the first time around. So when rebuilding this, hopefully I'll be able to get it that much better, stronger, more accurate as I go along. In regards to the paneling, I did say, again, I can't remember if it was last update or the update before, that if I was starting again, I would build from the bottom upwards. So I could do that. However, I'm also thinking that it's probably better to have it in the same technique as I'm doing at the moment. And the reason being is these panels, because of the way they're built, where you're using snot bricks and you've only got, say, half a dozen connection points on each side, it's very easy for one of these to get knocked and break. Now, if this is all permanently attached together in one of those breaks, I could really struggle to get everything clipped back together. So I think I am probably better off still having these as removable panels. So when I take this to a convention or when I'm moving this, it is very easy for me to just take them all off, move the rest of the vessel, and then reattach them back on afterwards. So yeah, this is very frustrating and annoying. But again, as I said at the very beginning, it's the first time I've ever built anything like this. So this sort of thing, I was hoping wasn't going to happen, but it has happened many, many times. And hopefully this will be the last time we have to do something like that. But that'll probably be famous last words. We've got to get to the engines yet. Anyway, without further ado, let's start clearing off the table. What I'm going to be doing is moving this section here down to the other end of the Lego room, move all that along, give us have a big open space here, and then we'll start dismantling it, sort as we go along, and then we'll restart building it. And fingers crossed, we'll be able to get it all back together within the next week or two. And here we have our rebuild, and it is pretty much a complete rebuild. The display stand has been amended. I've got more support on the back here, so it doesn't want to tilt back now. And this rebuild was necessary, unfortunately. The more I was looking at things, the more I realised that there were misjudgments, miscalculations, and a whole load of other bits on here, which is frustrating, but, you know, it's I've made a mistake, and now it's just a case of putting it all back together and hopefully learning from my mistakes. That's the most important thing with this. Now, in regards to the length part here, this is now shorter, and previously it was too long. And I think that's why I had the slope come down, and then there was a flat section, which I said I need to check to see which details are on there. However, when I looked at the image, and I put it on screen again now, there is nothing there. There's not a flat bit. The slope goes down and it goes straight into the cockpit curves. So again, that was one of the things why things weren't looking right to me, is because I'd messed up on that part as well. So when I went to look at this, it wasn't a case of just bringing the cockpit that way, because then it started interfering with the corridor. So the corridor then had to come up, and yeah, it ended up, might as well just rebuild this entire part. I have snapped the walls off in big chunks, so it's going to be a little bit easier for me to put it all back together should I decide to put the corridor section in there. However, I'm starting to think that due to how small this section here is actually going to be now, is it really worth adding the corridor back into it? I'm not convinced it is, but I will make a decision further down the line. I won't worry about it too much at the moment. I want to concentrate on the cockpit section first of all. Now, in regards to these circles here, they feel a little bit small at the moment. However, I have checked the size of it compared to the rest of the vessel, and it is almost correct. Now, the reason I say almost is one stud out, and there's not much I can do in regards to that one stud without making it not look right. I'm happier with it being one stud small on this particular part. But even put the panels up against the side of it, and that gets it pretty much to the size it needs to be. And I could possibly just pack it out behind the panels, which might, if there may be a way that I can do it where I actually get additional strength into the panels as well, and then it will be the right size. So this is the way that we're going to be going forward. It feels stronger than the previous version as well. I've gone for the same technique under here as well, where I've got a ledge. So these parts here, the hull of the ship on the bottom of the cockpit, they can slide in there. So that is the way that we're going to be going forward with this. On the front here, again, I've left 2 channels again, so I can slide things in should I need to do so. This time I'm making sure that I don't overbuild coming out with any Technic work. Trying to keep it as slimline as possible so that I don't have parts in the way, which was a problem last time out. What I'm going to be working on next is this section here. We've got the slope that goes down here, and then we've got a slope that goes up there, and I need to try and get as much strength as possible into that part. The previous design, it wasn't strong enough for my liking, and I was constantly having to fix it. And it was very, very fiddly. If I can make it rock solid straight away, then that would be the best thing for me. But yeah, it's we're getting there slowly but surely. This has taken over a day to get back to this stage. That day includes dismantling everything. So yeah, I'm really confident that we will be pretty much back to how it was looking beforehand within 2 updates. So yeah, we'll carry on pushing on with it, and this build, I'm confident, is going to look a lot better for these amendments. And we're getting there slowly but surely, and it's a lot sturdier. That's one thing I will say. There's so many parts on here which feel so much stronger than they did the first time around, which is really positive. The corridor section here, I've added it back in here. I'm not sure yet whether or not we will actually have it on the build. It's a case of whether or not I get the removable panel on there. I think I can. The more I look at it, the more I think, yes, this is achievable on here. So fingers crossed that will work. It is obviously shorter now, but I have put the jumper plates in here ready for the troops to be marched away. And this section here, I couldn't work out how I did it last time. I looked at some images, and that's one part that I'm not 100% happy with, and I'm going to have a think about a different way of doing the corners of that. I think, again, it's because this is narrower now, I can't fit as much stuff in here. So the cockpit area, that's a little bit smaller as well. And this is all due to the fact that the cockpit area has shrunk in size. Now, we put this panel on here above the window. It's the first time we've had that on there. Now, with the next part of this, I want to start working on the hull of the ship here. And previously, I was having a part coming here, and then it stopped around about here, and then we're having a second bit, and then you have the centre section. And I don't particularly want to do it that way. I'd sooner have this as a removable panel in the centre, and then the panels come right up to it. The only thing is, the centre section that comes over here is only going to work out, I think it's about 10 studs wide. So we're talking around about here. Now, that means that I would then have to box over the cockpit here and here, which I suppose isn't the end of the world. It could be the best way forward to give this the best look on the ship. And then I can just run these panels up to that particular part. So I just want to make sure that I get this right first time. We've made enough mistakes with this build already without making another one at this stage. I need to check that the removable panels on the bottom are going to work. I should have done that ages ago, and it totally slipped my mind. But in theory, it's the same principle as before. So hopefully it will all work out well. And I am going to be doing the same on the top here as on the bottom, where it will be just one panel on one section that sits into this part here. Previously, I had loads of bits built up inside it, and then we had a few removable panels on top of that. It's not going to be that way. So again, fingers crossed, this is going to be a much more efficient way of building it. I certainly feel like I've learned so much from the first time I made it, and also learned a lot from taking it apart as well. There's things I noticed, well, actually I can do this a lot better. This can be a lot stronger. Hopefully this can be a much better looking Tantive V and much stronger one by the time we finished. And the cockpit hull is once again proving to be the most challenging part of the build, and it is just trying to get the gaps as close together as possible, and also try and keep this line here as tight as possible as well, so it doesn't go in and out. And it is, yeah, just proving to be really difficult. I'm probably on about my 10th different design of here. I tried replicating what was on the previous build, and it didn't work, and it's due to the fact that the circle is that much smaller. I mean, it's only by a couple of studs, but I've got to lose it in these end panels here. I've tried making these parts here thinner as well by using the snot bricks, so the studs are facing this way, then that way, and then rotating them all the way down. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to try and make one panel to go over this section at the front here, see how that gets on with the overall look of it, and then we'll go from there. But once I've just got one section completed, then the other three will be really quick. So just need to keep persevering with this. I'm sure we'll get there pretty soon. And it's been a really long day today, trying to get this done as much as possible. And these panels, they have taken forever. And I'm really happy with how they come along. There's so much more strength in between these two sections compared with how they previously were. Now, somebody did comment a couple of updates ago, and I did bring it up in the last video about why don't I squeeze my bricks together when I'm concerned so much about the gaps between the panels. And I said I did squeeze them together, or at least I thought I did. And I think the person might have been referring to these little minute gaps that you see here. Now, I did just squeeze those all together and they were all compressed. But as soon as I move the panel, the gaps appear again. So it is something, unfortunately, that I can't get away from. So yeah, if that was the gaps you're referring to, that's the reason why. In regards to the interior here, the cockpit is a little bit smaller, but I've also had to do away with the corridor that was going across this way here, as it was getting in the way of the panels coming down there. So you were never going to be able to see it anyway, because the removable panel that I'm going to have is just going to be from here forward. So you're going to be able to see down just about into the corridor. From that way there, you'll be able to see in, but you would never be able to see that. So it was wasted bricks, wasted parts. So yeah, it's no loss not having that in there. Now, there is still something about this cockpit section. It's not looking quite right to me, but I can't put my finger on what it is at the moment. And I don't want to go too much further through with it until I've worked out where that issue is. The cockpit glass at the moment I feel is a little bit too wide. There's too much red there. I need to shrink that down a little bit. And that may then also mean the cockpit needs to be altered very slightly. So these walls I've stepped out here just to make this fit. I think maybe they need to come back in. And that could be what the problem is that I'm looking at the moment. But I think what I'm going to start off by doing is building up this section behind here, as I feel once I've got that bit in there, everything else is going to give me a good idea of it, how it's looking proportionally wise. Is this cockpit the right size? So let's start off by doing that, and then we'll check back in and see how it's looking. And there we have the slope all in place, and it's amazing how much difference that slope makes to the whole look of this front of the vessel. The cockpit section now feels the right size. So I'm so glad that I have made the decision to destroy this entire section, this update, and start again. In my opinion, it was worth it. Frustrating as it may be, as I mean, this has taken so many hours to get this done. The amount of time I've been out of the Lego room this week has been insane. More insane than normal, but yeah, it was worth it. Just having this looking how I want it to is so important to me, but there we have it. Now in the next update, I'm going to continue to work on the hull of the cockpit section, get that all covered again, looking how it should do. Now that we know the style that we're going for on here and how we're getting those panels working, it shouldn't take too long to get sorted. Need to check that cockpit glass there, just make sure that that is how it needs to be, or do I need to amend that? If I do amend that, I might have to tweak this bit as well, which I really don't want to do if I can help it. But yeah, we'll double check, triple check the measurements, and hope we do a better job of measuring than we have in the past. There are so many details to go on these panels as well, so once I've got them all the way around and I know that it looks how I want it to look, then I'll go back and add all of the details onto them. There's some details up here on this side, for example, which I think is going to look really good on there. And hopefully I'll be able to position it so it covers over some of the cracks in between the two panels. So that would be good if we can do so. But what a week, deciding to destroy an entire section of this vessel and start again. I mean, I know we did it with the corridor section back here, but this was never anywhere near as complete as what this front cockpit section was. So yes, very frustrating. And at one stage I was there thinking, what have I done? Why have you done this? But in the end, I'm glad I trusted my gut and went for it, because yeah, I think it's going to be well worthwhile in the long run. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the update. If you have, please remember to give us a big thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content on the channel. If you're watching on mobile, if you could hit the hype button, that'd be great to help others to find the channel. And if you know anybody else you think would be interested in building the Tantive IV in Lego, if you could share the channel with them, it'd be much appreciated. Anyway, till next time, bye for now.